Hi, I'm Tim, BBT Tim from BBT, your favorite YouTube cryptocurrency mining channel. I'm here with BBT Carter, who works for me, our cryptocurrency and mining expert, and then our great friend, Dennis from the Satoshi Action Fund, a policy and regulation advocacy group. So first, we're going to paint the picture so that we can understand technologically what is Bitcoin, what is mining, and why is that important to us. Carter's going to give us a little background on the mining operation that he's running and why. And then we're going to switch over to Dennis to talk a little bit about the policy and regulatory landscape so that we can understand why it's so important that we pay attention to educating Congress and our politicians and how we can help. So first, Carter, take it away. Give us our background, paint the picture technologically.
Yeah, so I think obviously this is a Bitcoin mining conference. This is Mining Disrupt. It brings together a lot of industry people, both from, a technical standpoint that are trying to be participants in it. And that could be from your power folks, from your, regular, some walking around. I saw a couple miner folks walking around trying to get some information on how this industry is evolving when it comes to the power side. I think that's one of the biggest, discussion points right now, especially with like ESG and that coming from that standpoint. And then you got your technology folks. So we got a lot of different cryptocurrency mining units themselves. You got, the hardware, the supply chain side that we love bringing to you guys to see what's new and what's upcoming and how to maybe optimize your own build, if it's a smaller build and that sort of thing. So this all crashes together with the regulatory environment. We had to deal with a lot of that in Illinois in our 5 megawatt build. We had to work with local government, educate them to understand, like, what is Bitcoin? Why are you guys picking Illinois? What's the reason for us to try to do this? And, sit down at those board meetings and educate them and help them understand like why the decentralized network is very important, why it's decentralized, and then what's the incentive and the token that we get for securing that network. So we took a very basic approach of just trying to explain it and then walk them through like in a crawl, walk, run way. And that really worked out well for us in our area. So we try to share this kind of stuff with the community to let them know and how maybe to approach, because a lot of this is just confusion. They may not understand. So we always have our door open out there in Illinois. Anybody ever wants to come out, it's a 5 megawatt site. It's 4 40-foot containers. It's real. It does make some noise. It produces some heat, but it's actually helping stabilize the grid in our area, our little contribution in that particular piece. And we try to make sure that it's open for people to come check out and understand on how that functions. And I think that that's going to really help us on this conversation to understand more from like the DC or the greater government to try to understand on how the federal government is working on it.
Yeah, and you're helping to secure the network. You bring in high-tech jobs to the area, and then you're using energy that would have been stranded, right?
Yep.
So you're putting money back in that ecosystem. So let's switch over to Dennis. First, before we get philosophical, let's dive into the background. What is the Satoshi Action Fund and why does it exist?
Yeah, well, I really quickly wanted to highlight, I thought it was important where you mentioned that you want to bring people in and let them see what's going on. And also that you're sharing the benefits of this technology. That is critical for us, Satoshi Action Fund. We spend a lot of our time telling policymakers and regulators on the value of the technology. The key tenets we say are the environmental impacts, the energy impacts, and the economic impacts. So Satoshi Action Fund, what we do is we educate policymakers and regulators on the value of the technology. And once we get them all on board, once we get them to love Bitcoin mining as much as me and you, we pass policy with them. We say, hey, here's some policy we crafted in-house. Our right to mine bill is our most popular. We say, okay, you want to make this industry come to town? You want to have these benefits come to town? Here you go. Here's some policy you can pass. We've had a lot of success with that approach. So I think we introduced 9 times in 7 different states last year, variety of different pieces of policy. Ultimately, we ended up passing our right to mine bill into law in Montana and Arkansas. And in fact, in the Montana bill, we also banned additional taxes on Bitcoin when used as a form of payment. So we've had a lot of success there. We're going to keep going. Since then, we've also launched a research arm, Satoshi Action Education. We just had a working group with a bunch of industry folks where we got together and we tried to figure out, all right, what is the most important areas of research that we need to focus on for the space? Because you and I, of course, are going to sit down at a table with a policymaker and say, all right, here's the benefits. And they're going to go, of course, you're going to say that you're an advocate for the space. You're going to tell everyone about the benefits. How can I trust you? And we say, well, we probably need to do some more research, right? And they're like, yes, more research. And they're like, great. We're going to form a research agenda. Would you like to help us with that? And they're like, I see what you did there. So we're having a lot of success with that approach as well. We're going to keep pushing forward. And ultimately, our goal is to change the narrative on Bitcoin mining. Because right now, not only is it the politicians, the regulators, but the media and just the general public, they see Bitcoin mining and they're like, isn't that bad for the grid? Isn't that bad for the environment? Isn't it a scam? So we need to change the narrative on all those verticals so that we can start to see Bitcoin mining adoption really take place in the United States. And that's our ultimate goal. Change the narrative and make the United States the best place in the world to mine Bitcoin.
So let me ask first, I'm going to ask you, Dennis, and then Carter, you can chime in, but we get what it is, but now why is it so important that you would put your time and energy and your team's time and energy into trying to solve some of these problems that you just outlined for us?
Absolutely. I mean, it comes back to that question about the benefits of Bitcoin mining. What are they?
Yeah.
The benefits are that they can balance the grid. It can provide revenue to renewable energy that it doesn't currently have. So there's all sorts of stranded energy out there. CAISO, that's just California's ISO. They put out a curtailment chart. You can go look at it. By 2030, they're on track to curtail more energy than the bottom 36 nations combined. It's an incredible amount of power that's completely wasted, not used. These ROIs aren't coming in for these renewable projects. And so they're not able to grow appropriately. So Bitcoin mining can come in, it can balance the grid, but it can also provide revenue to these companies that need it the most. At the same time they're doing that, they're providing jobs in rural America. They've been hit the hardest. I mean, you go to anywhere in rural America and you'll see these towns are on the verge of bankruptcy. And Bitcoin miners are coming in and providing jobs and economic value to these local communities. And it's the interesting thing about the job creation component is when they come in to create jobs, they're not pulling in people from Central California. They're not pulling people in from even big towns in Texas. They're pulling people from the local community, training them up, getting them ready to work in this workforce. And then here's the one big benefit I think that goes the most missed, to be honest, about the Bitcoin mining space. I talked a little bit about it on stage earlier, but it's that Bitcoin mining is essentially seeding the ground for the next generation of electrical and energy infrastructure, as well as data center infrastructure that we need in order to compete at the global scale. AI is going to take over everything in the next 10 years. And in order for us to be the leader of AI, we have to build those data centers here. You want to trust the AI data centers in China or Russia? Good luck. So we need to build it right here in America, and Bitcoin mining is leading the way in that innovation.
So we see it's pushing innovation. So what's your take on this from a technical perspective?
I think we're going through a technological maturity model right now. And I think we're getting into Gen 2, Gen 3. People understand how to maintenance these things now. They understand that it's not just about set it and forget it. You actually have to hire a few more people in the local community to help maintain it. There is you have to nurture it and help give that feedback in an open source way to get better products out there and then improve the supply chain line. One thing I would say in this conference alone, the difference between the last 2 years is the amount of innovation that's came to this country to support this initiative here. Like most of these containers here are built in the USA. They're not importing them from other places. They're literally being manufactured here. Power systems, the PDU systems, all of the ancillary systems that support from an infrastructure standpoint. If it's transformers, literally behind this wall is a transformer producer.
Yeah, that's right.
We picked up, we had 12 transformers delivered from Indiana for our own site, right? Raptor Power Systems. We sourced local. And so it's not just about the Bitcoin miner and the miner itself. It's all that supporting architecture and all that happens to bring up that infrastructure in the US, built in the US. So it is a much larger ecosystem than just the miners themselves. And, we show the pictures and the images. We do the same thing with like our drone footages and stuff of that location. But if we just pan to the left and see the what they've done from an expansion to bring the grid there and bring the transmission and get the windmills on. I mean, part of our whole thing in Illinois was they had huge initiatives over the last 5 years to build wind power. And when you would drive up 55, you would see a lot of wind power turned off, much to what we were seeing from that stranded energy stuff in there from California. We're turning those on, right? And they're not. And what that does, because it's leveling out that grid, when we sat down with our power company, they were like, we don't have to use our natural gas peakers as much because now we have all this online available power that is using that wind power. So they're not having to bring the peakers up, right? So it is actually changing because now you have a much better analysis and model because you have a more consistent load. So I think it's an education across the whole stack to understand it's not just the individual miners out there, it's the whole entire ecosystem and supply chain and the maturity of that when they're making the decisions to make new things, they're being made in the USA. And that's I think the common theme I've seen here just at Miners Disrupt of all these entities like, hey, it's manufactured in the US. The lead time is quick. I don't have to wait for it to come across the pond. And I think that's vital to some of those discussions to talk to those proof points of where this stuff is coming from.
So you're pushing innovation, efficiencies, optimization, exploration. I am heartened over the past few years because I've seen in Congress and congressional hearings and testimony, intelligent questions are starting to be asked. It's not just scam, drugs, cause cancer, right? Whatever. Now they're actually asking real questions. And a lot of the questions focus on how is this going to impact my constituents? How is it going to improve their lives in some way? So that's a very positive trend. But before we get into all those positive, good feelings, can you talk about some of the obstacles that you still see in place that we all need to be aware of so that we can unite together to try and overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's there's no other thing to point to than that it's a lack of education and a lack of research in the space. So for us, as for Satoshi Action, when we went out and we realized that there were a lot of people that were obviously on the fence, we tried to convince them. I said it earlier. I go in, of course, I'm the advocate. Of course, I'm going to say positive things. They needed to hear from the academic space that the things that I was saying were true. So that's why we got them involved in this research agenda approach where we're building out a research agenda. And then what happens is researchers are going to go, oh, wow, these policymakers are involved in the process of developing these questions. And we can come in and answer them and have a real world impact. The one thing about the research space is they're not driven by money, although money matters. It's really important for any industry, any space. The most important thing for these people in the policy, or excuse me, within the academic space is to have policy impact. They want to get citations. They want to be mentioned. They want to get the appropriate sort of accreditation, because that's how they get career advancement. And career advancement is critical for those in the academic space. So the biggest hurdle that we face in this industry is a lack of research. It's a lack of educational tools. And Satoshi Action is leading the way on that. It's why we're here doing the working group. And it's why we went to DC to meet 15 US Senate offices, because while we were there, we kept saying over and over again, there needs to be more research. And they agreed every single time that there needs to be more research, but not just research. It needs to be peer-reviewed research. You can put out a white paper all you want all day long. Yeah. You can go craft one up yourself. But if you can't get it through the peer review process, which some people don't like, but it's the worst system we have compared to all the others. Same thing with everything else in government, right? Government sucks except for everything. Every other option is even worse, right? So we have to approach it from the tools that we know we need to use in order to get to where we need to go. And that's the peer reviewed process. Luckily, we brought on Dr. Murray Rudd, 20 years of experience in the academic space, an editor on multiple journals. So he knows how to get things through the journal process into the peer review process. And we don't think anybody else is in a better position than us to accomplish that mission.
So you point out science, which is one of my favorite topics. Scientific collaboration around the world and economic trade are two of those things that unite us globally, right? Not only in the US, but outside the US. And you can see the world is a little bit of a powder keg right now, but we still have collaboration. We're bringing in the best parts, the best talent from different countries. And so that's a positive story to tell. But what's a concern? For example, if we keep having regulation that suppresses or pushes it away, what does America stand to lose if we don't put the right policy to shepherd these technologies safely inside our borders?
Yeah, I mean, we miss out on the potential to benefit the grid balancing benefits. We miss out on the potential to have the energy transition actually work. Because right now we are struggling to transition, and that they're going to keep going. It doesn't even matter where you sit on the left, the right. It doesn't matter if you're pro-environment or you're just, arbitrarily pro-energy. We are transitioning our energy systems. We're going to a fully electrified economy. In order to get there, we have to make some very significant changes. And a Bitcoin miner is a big part of that transition and making that transition smooth. And if we don't, we run the risk of not only missing out on all the innovation, we run the risk of blackouts. We run the risk of rolling brownouts on a regular basis. And this is something we really haven't experienced in the United States before. And I think people are going to get really upset. And what's going to happen is all of a sudden, you're going to have serious public backlash against this sort of transition. And it will actually make the problem worse. It'll slow it down even further because we're on this path that we can't really turn back from. We can only try our best to make it better. And if we don't allow Bitcoin mining to come in, to balance the grid, balance the renewables, improve reliability, provide better ROIs, it'll be the taxpayer that pays. It'll be the ratepayer that pays for it. And everyone else will be wondering, why did we not incorporate Bitcoin mining sooner?
So you two are educators and innovators at the end of the day. You help to bring this community together to have these important talks. And you have this decade plus channel where you're trying to grow the pie and grow the education. So I'm going to ask you both for your takeaways, and I'll give Dennis the last word. Yep. So Carter, from an educational standpoint and from a call to action, what would you leave the community with today?
I would say understand the fact that over the last few years, as Bitcoin mining has really moved from China, the gift that we got in May of 21, where it was able to go around the world and spread to where we could have engagement in that and be part of that story on the mining aspect of it, not just, the asset itself. I think now that that's there, anybody can participate in that. I mean, some of this stuff on this channel that we show a lot, USB miners, just understanding, just getting part of it. Like, yeah, you're chasing maybe a dream to ever win a block, but like, just be part of it. Understand that there are options out there for you to be part of an engagement. And there's an entire ecosystem that's building up around that, from supply chain and from the infrastructure standpoint, power companies. If you're watching those type of things, ask the questions, reach out to us, reach out to these different groups to learn more. We're here to help you get through that and to help you become part of that piece of it. So it is a large community. This community is awesome. Once you get in there, and people really are very free sharing of information to help people get along there. So I would just say, reach out to those resources that are there. If you're watching it, you even have a remote question, take that few second answer. I'm going to tell you, it's going to change your life when you start to understand how this works.
Yeah. So get your hands dirty, right?
Yes.
Reach out to the Carters of the world when you have tough questions.
Yes.
All right. So then the last word from you, Dennis. First of all, what are the key takeaways you'd want to leave the audience with? And number two, how can we help the Satoshi Action Fund achieve its mission?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. For me, the biggest takeaway is that we got to really hone in on sharing the benefits, and we got to do it locally.
Mm-hmm.
We go to DC, we spend time there, but ultimately our goal is to advocate at the state level, advocate at the local level, because the incentives are in place for you to have an impact as an individual. When you go to your policymaker, you go to your regulator on the local level, they care a lot about jobs. They care a lot about local impact, and also energy policy. The vast majority of it takes place at the state level. It doesn't take place in DC. Although a lot of things happen in DC, the vast majority of energy related policy occurs within your state borders. So engage with your policymakers, make sure that you're sharing those benefits that we talked about, really hone in on them. We have a one-pager on our website. You can go to satoshiaction.io. It lists out every single one of the benefits that we talked about here and more. You can share that with the policymaker. They're probably going to be blown away. To be honest, half the time we talk to these guys and gals, they're just like, I never even knew any of this was possible. Yeah. So they're going to be blown away. And even if you're not an expert educator, I would say, give it to them. And then at the bottom is our website, and it's also our email, and tell them, hey, I'm not the expert. I'm not the educator. I just wanted to share these benefits with you. Reach out to Satoshi Action, reach out to Carter, reach out to someone who knows how this technology works and the value that it can provide, and just continue to do that over and over again, because this is going to be a bottom-up game. We're never going to be able to accomplish the mission of full mass adoption of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining from a top-down approach. We need to do it from the bottom up, and we're here to support that effort at Satoshi Action. So you can go to satoshiaction.io. We are looking for people to come on as monthly supporters. That really helps us out a lot. We love our small dollar donors. We do have large donors as well, but the small dollar donors, really, they come in on a monthly basis, and it makes a big difference for us as we look forward and we lower our time preference to see what we can accomplish over the year.
So you'll find all the links that Dennis mentioned below this video. Yep. We'd like to thank Dennis and the Miners Disrupt Summit for bringing us all together. And on behalf of BBT YouTube, we thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Signing off. BBT Tim, BBT Carter, Dennis.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.